Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. So, I put a poll on the Patreon page. The link is for Patreon below. At the $2 level and above, you get access to Patreon-only posts. One of the posts I put on there was I put a poll of about 10 subjects. And I asked all the Patreon backers, which ones would you like, what subjects would you like me to cover? And a bunch of you have gone in there to vote. So I'm going to cover some of those subjects right now. At the $5 level, you can actually pick an exact article or topic for me to speak about. So I just trying to gauge, what you guys want to talk about. And one of the things that some of you clicked on was military spending in the United States. So I went to this site, nationalpriorities.org. I'll put the link below. And I've known this for a while about the spending of the United States military, but when you see it broken down this way, it's really kind of horrifying, and it says a lot of things. First of all, and this is the budget from 2015, while Obama was still president, okay? And as we get into now, Trump announced his new budget about a couple weeks ago saying, we're going to spend more on military. Like it's that old thing that Reagan used against Carter. So Carter cut a lot of the military, and Reagan came in and said, the military's falling apart because these Democrats, they just tax and spend, and they don't spend money on the military, and we got to fight the Soviets, right? The amount of money we spend on the military, especially since 9/11, is unbelievable. So the overall budget for the United States in 2015 was $1.11 trillion. That's with a T. That was the total operating budget of the United States, okay? So the military accounted for 54% of the budget, $598.5 billion in 2015. It was pretty consistent. All regular activities of the Department of Defense, war spending, nuclear weapons spending, international military assistance, and other Pentagon-related spending. 54% of the budget is for the military. I'll just go into numbers and percentages of each category. So then there's the government, which accounts for 6% of the budget, and it's $72.9 billion. And that's basically to fund the government, everything, to pay government employees, government buildings, whatever, any government, anything, cars, trucks, office supplies, all that. $72.9 billion, that's 6% of the budget. Education gets $70 billion. That's another whopping 6% of the budget. Gee, I wonder if we spent more on education. I wonder if we didn't spend so much on military and spend it on education. You just see, this is the military-industrial complex. This is the deep state. This is the corporate machine behind this, motivating everything. So when people say like single-payer healthcare, the thing Bernie Sanders and many others have been talking, the Green Party talks about this, been talking about this forever. Oh, there's pie in the sky. How are you going to pay for it? I got an idea. Why don't we cut the military budget down a little bit? Because did you know this? That if you compare this to the rest of the world, okay, if you compare what we spend to the rest of the world, and again, there's a link on here to nationalpriorities.org. This is listed at a bunch of different places, right? So the next largest, how do I put this? The military, the U.S. expenditures on military are roughly the size of the next 7 largest military budgets around the world combined. If you combine China, Saudi Arabia, Russia, United Kingdom, India, France, and Japan, we spend more than all of them combined. And people might say, okay, well, we need, we need a big budget, right? Terrorism and all that. Let's not forget, the trade towers were brought down with box cutters. All this money we spent, all this laser guided, all this troop, everything, all this high tech, a $30 million fighter jet, the trade towers were brought down with box cutters. Okay? So let's get back to some of the percentages here. Medicare and health, $66 billion we spend. It's still about 6% of the budget. Gee, I wonder how we could pay for health care. Maybe if we made it, 12% of the budget. Veterans benefits, $65.3 billion. Again, that's around 6% of the budget. So we spend 54% of our budget on the military. We got no problem training people in the military, sending them over there, putting them in harm's way, having them come back with physical and mental disabilities and problems. But then we don't really take care of them. And that's why one guy had to set himself on fire outside of a VA in Jersey. Awesome. Housing and community, another $63.2 billion. That's only 6% of the budget. International affairs, 4% of the budget. Energy and the environment, 3% of the budget. As I've said, in 2015, China spent $111 billion. Science, we spend 3% of the budget on science, $29.7 billion. You know that's coming down with Trump. Social Security, unemployment, and labor is only 3% of the budget. So when the corporate media and Republicans and even some Democrats try to you hear this I'm tired of my taxes going to pay, welfare moms and these people that are lazy that don't work. They're only getting 3% of the budget. So for every dollar in taxes you spend, 3 cents of it, put it that way, goes to help people on welfare. 3% of the budget, 54 cents of every dollar you give goes to the military. Transportation, 2% of the bill. Gee, I wonder why we have a crumbling infrastructure. We got drones everywhere. We've got aircraft carriers. We can blow the world up like 15, 20 times over. But the roads are crumbling. Food and agriculture, 1%. Do you know we only inspect 40,000 head of cattle a year for mad cow disease? Did you know that? That's what the 1 penny of every tax dollar you give does. There it is, guys. Check it out. All the links are below. That's what we spend on the military. We could cut the military budget in half and still outspend everybody. We could still be close to China. We don't need to do this. And people might say, oh, my grandma, what about all the jobs in the military? Why don't we take some of those people creating bombs and why don't we let them create roads? Or why don't we improve our schools? Or why don't we inspect our food, make sure we don't have poisonous soil or we don't have people getting sick from the water in Flint, Michigan, like Jimmy Dore reported in Aggressive Progressive. That guy that did the town hall and it was has a lot of neurological problems from all the crap that's in the water. Do you think that's a little more important? Water that doesn't give you permanent brain damage? Do you think that's a little more important than a bunch of tanks for some ground war that's never happening? We're not fighting ISIS in a traditional ground war. Like, subscribe, go to the Patreon so you can participate in more of these types of polls. I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to do more stuff on the Patreon. You get access to Patreon only posts. If you go to the $10 level, you get a bonus episode. The $25 level, we'll do a Skype interview once a month. So there's a lot of ways for you guys to get involved and help make this show better. And I appreciate everything you've done for the Political Vigilante. Thanks for watching.